My name is Ron and my wife Lily, and I have been happily married for 15 years. Our family brought me great joy, and I appreciated the love my wife gave me. Over time, our relationship grew, and we had 2 lovely daughters. Both of us had steady, successful jobs. Lily worked as a translator at a film studio, and I worked as a security guard at a company. My love for my wife was immeasurable, and I was confident in her everlasting devotion to me. We were in good health, living in a beautiful house in a nice neighborhood. Our life was full of happiness, and it felt perfect. After our second daughter was born, Lily struggled to lose the weight she gained, but her captivating blue eyes remained attractive. She chose not to wear contact lenses because they caused discomfort when reading or working with papers. Instead, she wore glasses with large lenses, which emphasized the attractiveness of her eyes, making them even more seductive. My love for her remained unchanged. I was sure that she really loved me, as our strong bond was quite obvious. Our family was filled with happiness because we had 2 beautiful daughters, and financial stability was never a concern. My life was filled with happiness until that fateful moment. After 15 years of marriage, an unpleasant incident occurred that threatened the harmony and perfection of our world. In recent years, Lily has developed a habit of going to parties with her female colleagues. They visited various pubs, alternating their favorite places. On Fridays, they met in these places after work. Lily often assured me that it was just an opportunity to chat and relax. Naturally, I didn't mind her spending time in such places. After all, I invariably came home in the early morning every day and took responsibility for our daughters. On those evenings when Lily was out with her friends, I cooked dinner for our girls and was happy to help them with their homework. Performing these duties brought me great joy. Lily usually returned home around 8 in the evening after her outings, which allowed us to enjoy the weekend with the whole friendly family. We loved to spend time together, which gave us all great pleasure, and by all means. We had dinner together with our daughters on Saturday evenings, but in recent months, there had been a change. Lily started coming home later than usual on the night she spent time with her friends. Instead of coming home around 8, she'd come home closer to 10, and I could sense that she'd had a few drinks. Despite my remarks, I didn't voice my concern. After all, she remained the same affectionate and devoted wife she had always been. Every time she returned from an outing, her face lit up with a familiar smile, making me want to hug her tightly. I realized that going out with friends served as a way for Lily to relax, allowing her to escape from the pressures of a stressful work week. I reassured myself that her interactions with the coworkers she spent time with were harmless and purely for pleasure. Even if she started coming home later than usual, I saw no reason to worry. But a few weeks ago, on a Monday morning, I received an email from an anonymous sender who introduced himself as just a friend. At first, I decided to delete the letter without reading it, but after thinking about it, I decided to take the time to familiarize myself with its contents. The letter I received was like this. I happened to be at the Black Crow last Friday evening and noticed your wife among a group of people. She seemed to be enjoying it immensely. I couldn't help but notice that she danced almost exclusively with one particular man from her company. In case you're interested, I decided to capture this moment and took a picture on my mobile phone. Take a good look at the photo, and if you still think there is nothing wrong with her actions, then feel free to ignore this message. There was a file attached to the email that needed to be opened to view the photo. I wondered why someone would send me this message if there was nothing surprising about it. Moreover, the letter had already planted doubts in me, and I felt uneasy about what I was about to find out. It was not pleasant to learn that Lily had danced while walking with a man she had never mentioned before. Up until now, I had always assumed that Lily dated exclusively female colleagues at parties. However, there was a possibility that she was dancing with someone who was already present at the Black Raven, who wasn't really part of their company. Nevertheless, a lump formed in my throat and an uneasy feeling swept over me. Despite my inner hesitation, I gave in to my curiosity and opened the attachment. When the image appeared on the screen, it was noticeable that it was not quite centered, as if the photographer had taken precautions not to be noticed. In the background, I noticed my wife's colleagues, both men and women, sitting at a long table. Despite the slight blurring of the image, I could still make out my wife on the right, dancing on the dance floor. She was wearing a beige blouse decorated with red flowers and green leaves and the same brown trousers. It was the same outfit that Lily had worn the last time she went out with her friends. Thus, I came to the conclusion that the photo I am looking at now was taken last Friday. This evening, she came home later than usual. It was 10:30 when she hugged me and looked at me intently. When I looked at the picture, I noticed her happy smile, but something drew my attention. She stood on the dance floor, held closely by a tall young man. They were tightly wrapped around each other, with Lily's arms around his neck. I was quite surprised by what I saw. I couldn't remember ever dancing with Lily in such a bad way or behaving like that with any other woman in public. The man's lower body pressed against hers, and I couldn't help but imagine the sensations he must have felt due to his obvious attraction. In that position, it seemed natural to feel desire. Strangely, Lily didn't appear alarmed by what was happening. Instead, she wore a pleased smile, suggesting her active involvement when they locked eyes. I felt repulsed witnessing my wife, the mother of our 2 daughters, so close to a stranger and openly displaying affection in public. The disbelief I experienced was beyond words. I knew for certain she would never dance with me in public like that. I couldn't understand why she would allow a complete stranger to act this way with her. A question arose in my mind. Was he truly a stranger? Doubt crept in and grew rapidly, overpowering all my attempts to suppress it. Various scenarios involving my wife and unfamiliar men began to play out in my mind. A strong sense of nausea washed over me, leading me to rush to the bathroom where I regretfully vomited my breakfast. Perplexed, I observed Lily, my beloved wife, behaving in a manner that hinted at promiscuity. Was she really having an affair? How could she betray me and our 2 daughters like this? Countless other questions filled my thoughts, but one kept recurring. Who was this man? I couldn't help but assume he was a colleague of hers. How long had this secret involvement been happening right under my nose? But drove her to engage in such a deceitful relationship with him? Had she betrayed me? I was determined to uncover the truth and gather solid evidence of what had truly occurred. With a renewed sense of purpose, I tried to uncover the latest information about Lily's actions. For the next half hour, I retreated to the bathroom in my room, attempting to regain my composure and mental clarity. As time passed, a whirlwind of emotions stirred within me. Disappointment, sadness, anger, fueling a growing desire for revenge. I found myself gripped by intense feelings that provoked a strong reaction. At one point, I wanted to lash out at Lily, vent my anger and frustration. In the next moment, I wanted to embrace her and implore her to end her relationship with this man. Divorce seemed like a viable option, but within a few minutes I was already considering forgiveness and giving her another chance. Starting on the toilet, I began to question my sanity as these tumultuous thoughts consumed me. Eventually, I managed to regain control of my emotions. I decided to avoid impulsive actions and patiently monitor Lily's behavior before taking any definitive steps. It was crucial not to let my emotions dictate my decision, as I needed a clear understanding of the situation before making a choice. No, I had to remain patient and refrain from confronting her with what I had discovered. At the same time, I was resolute about uncovering the truth at any cost. I needed concrete evidence to determine if she was being unfaithful or simply indulging in excessive enjoyment. However, I couldn't ignore the fact that she had deceived me by withholding the full truth about her outings with her friends. I noticed that her workplace was just a few blocks from where I worked. Given my frequent business trips, it was relatively convenient for me to keep an eye on Lily. So, the next day, around 11:30 a.m., I discreetly parked my car at the far end of her workplace as parking lot. Thanks to the tinted windows in my company car, I was confident that I remained hidden from prying eyes as I carefully watched the exit door. I patiently waited there until 1 p.m., but she never appeared. I repeated this pattern throughout the week. Finally, on Friday at 12:15 p.m., I spotted Lily with 3 individuals, 2 men and a woman. They all got into a black BMW with Lily sitting in the front seat next to the driver. Without hesitation, I followed them. Our discreet journey took us through busy streets until we arrived at the parking lot of an upscale restaurant. From my spot across the street, directly facing the restaurant, I observed her cheerful laughter as they entered. Remaining in my car, I patiently awaited their departure, which occurred at 2 p.m. Lily walked alongside a tall man with blonde hair, the same man she had danced with in the photo I possessed. There was an air of excitement and camaraderie about them, evident in her playful interactions with him. It was this display that stoked my anger. Together, they returned to her workplace and disappeared inside. Up until this point, Lily hadn't committed any serious wrongdoing except for not informing me of her actions. She frequently dined with both men and women. But what troubled me most was the seemingly socializing this group displayed during lunch. Two couples, clearly not friends or colleagues, and that concerned me deeply. What struck me as unusual was that on that Friday, Lily didn't join her female colleagues for their post-work gathering. She returned home at 5 p.m., cheerful and wearing her usual smile, displaying remarkable self-control. I refrained from bombarding her with questions, but as we sat in front of the TV after dinner, I couldn't resist inquiring about her day at work and her lunch. For a moment, she appeared confused, but she quickly responded. She claimed to have had a tuna sandwich she had prepared that morning before heading to work. A liar, and possibly even a cheater. Despite my mounting anger, I couldn't ignore the urge to embrace her when she looked at me with her beloved blue eyes. Even as she uttered this blatant lie, conflicting emotions surged within me, torn between resentment and an overwhelming desire to hold her close. Such deep love for a person could elicit such emotions. I knew full well that I had to maintain my composure and self-control so as not to act impulsively and later regret my actions. Instead of pursuing her with questions, I made a conscious choice to change the subject and discuss my own workday. I attempted to behave as I normally did during our weekends together. Lily didn't seem to sense the gravity of the situation. Furthermore, that evening we exchanged hot words twice, and she behaved as affectionately as ever, like a loving wife. During our vacation, we decided to take our daughters to the zoo to create cherished family memories. For a while, I forgot about the events of the past week, and our day was filled with laughter and joy. Throughout the week, I refrained from monitoring her whereabouts during lunch, as I planned to track her down on Friday evening after work. When my daughters returned home at 3:15 on Friday, I was already there and eagerly awaited their return. I ordered pizza for them, ensuring their happiness, and explained that I had some business at the office. I left them both. My daughters had become quite independent, and I calmly left them alone in the house, provided they locked the doors. I knew they would be sound asleep in their room by the time I got back. Without hesitation, I got into the car and headed to Lily's workplace, arriving there at 5 o'clock. Observing from a distance, I noticed how she drove out of the parking lot, heading in the opposite direction of our house, indicating her intention to meet her friends at the pub for an evening party. It was not difficult to follow her unnoticed, as a line of 6 cars served as a convenient shield for my car. En route, my wife's Toyota seamlessly merged with other cars heading to various venues like a pub, a gathering place, or a dance hall, depending on one's perspective. 10 minutes later, I spotted Lily's Toyota, along with 6 other cars, entering the parking lot adjacent to an establishment known as the Glass Shoe, which uniquely combined a bar and a restaurant. Choosing to remain discreet, I parked the car at the far end of the parking lot, carefully observing the surroundings from the side. After everyone entered the establishment, I exited the car and took a leisurely stroll around the vicinity. It seemed prudent to gather as much information as possible about the place my wife frequented. The pub stood a distance away from other buildings, surrounded on all sides by a parking lot. 2 of its walls faced the street as the pub occupied a corner space, while the other 2 sides were marked by a neatly trimmed cedar fence standing 5 feet high, in front of which parking spaces were available. At that point, I noticed a black BMW from the group, the same one Lily had used to go to the restaurant the previous Friday. Surprisingly, it was now parked prominently in front of the cedar hedge, distinguishing it from the other cars parked outside the building. Upon closer examination, I realized that the building had 2 different entrances, one leading to the restaurant and the other to a bar situated at the back. Both the bar and the restaurant had fired doors intended strictly for emergencies. On the opposite side, where most of the cars were parked, there was an additional entrance. Moreover, there was another entrance leading to the bar, but Lily's company did not use it. Instead, they chose the entrance leading to the restaurant part of the building. Returning to the car, I retrieved the attire I had prepared for this occasion. Swiftly, I changed into a black windbreaker, donned a baseball cap, and put on glasses to alter my appearance. Finally, I inserted a protective prosthesis into my mouth to slightly modify my facial features, similar to a boxer's mouthguard. Despite its hindrance to speech and drinking, I paid no heed because my intention was not to engage in conversation or consume beverages. Glancing at my reflection in the rearview mirror, I reassured myself that I would remain unrecognizable. After patiently waiting for another hour in the car, I finally entered the bar. I spotted a group including my wife sitting together near the dance floor enjoying drinks and having a good time. Having them were 6 women and 4 men, including my wife. Upon noticing that my wife was sitting in proximity to the same man she had dinner with the previous Friday, a wave of sadness and disappointment overwhelmed me. I couldn't shake the suspicion that there was something between them. Deciding to distance myself from the situation, I chose a table in the far corner, as far away from them as possible. From my vantage point, I began to closely observe the unfolding events. The spot I selected was dimly lit, occupied by several individuals nursing their sorrows, much like me. I was confident that no one would pay attention to me in this corner. In less than a few minutes, music began to play, luring people to the dance floor. Before I could turn away, I witnessed Lily dancing with a man seated next to her. Strange smiles appeared on the faces of the remaining 3 men at the table as they watched Lily and her partner dance. It became evident to me that Lily and this man were more than mere acquaintances, and everyone nearby was witnessing their dance. Several hours passed, and their group dwindled to Lily, another woman, and 2 men. Eventually, both couples found themselves on the dance floor, leaving no doubt to all present that my wife and this man were lovers. He drew Lily closer, placing his hands on her waist. They swayed on the dance floor with subtle movements, their bodies pressed closely together. In that moment, I witnessed him leaning down to kiss her, whispering something in her ear. I observed her nodding in response, and without hesitation, they left the room hand in hand. Intrigued, I discreetly followed them out into the dark street. I watched them walk hand in hand to his car. Keeping my distance, I observed them enter the back seat. It became clear why he had parked the car in the last row of the parking lot near the cedar hedge. He sought privacy in the absence of prying eyes. With no other cars nearby, the hedge acted as a shield for his vehicle, and he likely felt secure in that location. Curiosity consumed me as I contemplated their intentions. How far was Lily willing to go? Determined to uncover the truth, I cautiously headed to the opposite end of the parking lot. Stealthily, I made my way between parked cars, striving to remain unnoticed. Before I knew it, I was positioned next to the back of his black car. Initially, I noticed an absence of people inside. It crossed my mind that they were likely in the back seat. In the dim light near the hedge, I was certain they wouldn't spot me from inside the car. So I cautiously moved closer and leaned towards one of the rear windows. Unfortunately, the heavily tinted windows made it impossible to see anything. Despite the poor visibility, I could still hear muffled voices from inside the car. I wrestled with the decision of whether to intervene immediately and rescue her, or wait and catch Lily in the act of betrayal. The choice tormented me, but there was no time to make up my mind. As fate would have it, the car started rocking in rhythm with the music, which, to my dismay, happened to be my wife's favorite. My anger overwhelmed me, and without thinking, I yanked the door handle and flooded the car with light from the roof lantern. To my horror, I discovered my beloved wife, Lily, lying on her back with her lover at Hopper. They were engaged in their illicit activities. I quietly removed my glasses and the denture that concealed my true identity. As the car's interior lit up, Lily's eyes widened in shock and recognition. In seconds, her expression shifted from joy to utter disbelief. After a brief moment, she spoke, her voice trembling and uncertain. "Oh my God, Ron, please forgive me," she muttered. "Don't rush into decisions you'll regret. It meant nothing to me. Just wait for me." I closed the door firmly behind me and swiftly headed to my car. As I drove away from the parking lot, Lily was already chasing after me, urgently pleading for me to wait. Less than 5 minutes later, she arrived home in a disheveled state, tears filling her eyes. "Oh my God, honey, I'm so sorry," she pleaded. "I love you more than anything in the world. I understand that I hurt you, Lily. You broke our marriage vows. In our 15 years together, I've never betrayed you. If I'd known you were cheating, maybe I'd have sought comfort elsewhere too. If fidelity doesn't matter in our marriage, perhaps I'd have sought fleeting pleasures," I said, my voice laced with anger. "Ron, please hear me out. I love you with all my heart. What I did didn't matter to me at all. I wish I could turn back time and fix everything, but it's impossible. You have to believe that you are my world. If you compare my life with yours and our 2 daughters, it doesn't matter at all." Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to contain her emotions, burying her face in her hands as if searching for salvation. Eventually, her legs gave way and she sank onto the sofa, continuing to express her remorse repeatedly. Apologizing, I said sternly, "What you did to our marriage is unforgivable. Tell me who he is and how long this betrayal has been going on," I said, relieved that she was no longer standing right in front of me. My anger surged as I grabbed her by the neck and shook her, an unfamiliar rage taking hold of me. "His name is Nick," she confessed, her voice trembling. "He's a colleague from the studio. This shouldn't have happened. Please believe that I love you more than anything." But then a terrible thought crossed my mind. "But you must admit your deception," I retorted. "You've been lying to me about your outings with friends while secretly seeing him for years. Do you expect me to believe you haven't been deceiving me all this time?" In a panic, she exclaimed, "Oh my God! No, this happened only recently. Please believe me. My love for you has only grown stronger over time. I beg for your forgiveness and understanding. There was never any genuine love in my actions." Others welled up in her eyes again, her disheveled appearance and swollen red eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. She pleaded for forgiveness. "No, you don't grasp the seriousness of this situation," I replied, disappointment evident in my voice. "Think about your colleagues who witnessed your affair. Think about us. Consider how others will perceive us if they see us together, whether on the street or at the office. It's not just a secret affair anymore. It's a blatant display of infidelity. You've publicly betrayed me. I'm sorry, but I can't bear this humiliation, and I want a divorce. I was resolute in my decision to end our marriage. Ron, please, I'm begging you, forgive me. You know I can't live without you. Please reconsider. I'm genuinely asking for your forgiveness. I promise it won't happen again. Right now, our priority is saving our marriage and protecting our family." As she spoke, I stood up and turned away, needing some solitude to think about our relationship. "Lily, our marriage started falling apart when you chose to be unfaithful. The consequences we're facing today stem from that betrayal." Suddenly, a sharp scream pierced the room, followed by sorrowful crying that deeply affected me. I looked back at Lily. She was on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably with her head in her hands. In that moment, conflicting emotions swirled within me. I wanted to embrace her, offer comfort, but anger and a sense of betrayal prevented me from doing so. I felt incapable of staying close to her, unsure if I could trust myself around her. Silently, I left our home and sought refuge for the night in a hotel room. I couldn't sleep, and my rest was restless and empty. Come morning, I decided to inform my secretary that I wouldn't be coming to work that day. I stayed in my hotel room until noon, pondering the events that had unfolded. Eventually, I managed to work up an appetite and dined sparingly in the hotel restaurant. With a heavy heart, I made my way to the office. Along the way, I couldn't help but glance towards my house. To my dismay, there was a green Toyota parked in front, and this unfamiliar presence heightened my anxiety. I concluded that the green Toyota belonged to Frances, Lily's sister. It was somewhat comforting to think that, in addition to their unfaithful mother, my daughters could rely on their aunt for support. However, I was still unaware of Lily's deteriorating condition. After I left home the previous evening, Lily had confided in her sister over the phone. The severity of the situation overwhelmed her, leading to a sudden breakdown. Now she was in the hospital, grappling with the aftermath of her emotional breakdown. It wasn't until I arrived at my office that I received the news. I received a call from Lily's sister, Francine, and we had a lengthy conversation. According to her, Lily was in an extremely critical condition, constantly in tears and anxious. What shocked me was that less than an hour after I had left the previous evening, my elder daughter had reached out to Francine, informing her that Lily was delusional, and I was absent. After their conversation, Francine hurried to my house and witnessed the dire state of her sister. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, she wasted no time in calling an ambulance for emergency medical assistance. Francine assured me that she would stay at my house to care for and support my two daughters during this challenging time. She strongly urged me to visit my wife at Santa Maria City Hospital. When our conversation ended, I was overwhelmed by shock. I realized how selfish and dismissive I had been the night before. The weight of my actions, or lack thereof, weighed heavily on me. Did I truly decide to leave my home, abandoning my daughters and wife when they needed support the most? Maybe. But one thing was clear to me. If I had stayed with her that evening, there was a disturbing possibility, however small, that my emotions could have led to cruelty due to the immense pain caused by her actions. While she may have played a significant role in the breakdown of our marriage, I had never considered myself a person who ignored problems or avoided facing them directly until yesterday. Was that what I did? In this situation, Lily and I were confronted with a monumental issue, certainly a significant one. But was leaving my family when they needed me the most the only way to justify my decision? Greta and guilt overwhelmed me, intensifying my sense of sadness. Tears streamed down my face as I hid behind the table. Deep down, I wondered if there might have been an alternative path, a path of forgiveness, reconciliation, and perhaps even a distant chance to salvage what remained of our relationship. Of course, the fact that we were in this situation was the result of Lily's actions. She bore full responsibility for betraying the sacred trust that should have been reserved solely for me. But the thought of ending our marriage weighed heavily on my heart, knowing it would cause great pain to my two beloved daughters. It became evident that I needed to explore an alternative solution, and I contemplated the idea of forgiveness. Gradually, as I processed the shocking news of Lily's hospitalization, I found a renewed determination. Without hesitation, I got behind the wheel and raced to the hospital, determined to uncover the truth about her actions and understand the situation. Doubt filled my mind, and I entered the hospital without a clear plan or knowing what I would say to Lily. But one thing remained certain. I was determined to seek the truth. As I sat in the hospital, I reflected on a piece of wisdom my mother had once imparted to me. Cheaters always eventually face the consequences of their actions. This idea still lingers in my mind as I think back to my wife's betrayal when she was just 20 years old. Lily and I got married, and our once happy marriage seemed like a dream come true. Our two beloved daughters brought us joy, and our comfortable home in a lovely neighborhood was a symbol of contentment. We didn't have financial troubles, and most importantly, our love was undeniable. However, life took an unexpected turn when, shortly after our younger daughter turned 6, Lily landed a job at a nearby film studio. With her proficiency in multiple foreign languages, she secured a position as a film translator. Her work as a voice translator was truly impressive, providing us with financial stability due to her impeccable skills. For 5 years, my wife excelled in her role until a new translator arrived. This tall, charismatic, blonde-haired colleague quickly became the center of attention among the studio staff. Despite the many admirers he had, he seemed oblivious to their affection. He shared Lily's proficiency in various foreign languages, leading to frequent encounters at work and the blossoming of a friendship that soon deepened. Herein lay the problem that troubled my wife's heart. Love surreptitiously crept into her emotions before she fully comprehended it, leaving her in a state of confusion. Before long, she realized she had fallen for him. Initially, he treated her no differently than other co-workers, focusing on work-related matters and maintaining a professional rapport. But when he began joining their bi-weekly outings, a subtle shift occurred. Gradually, they crossed the line from professional collaboration to a deep friendship. They confided in each other and shared the intricacies of their lives. Lily never discussed any of this with me. Soon, he became a regular presence at gatherings and dinners among their female colleagues. Her first mistake was not informing me when men started attending their gatherings. With time, their connection evolved into something more profound. On the dance floor, swaying to slow songs, they felt like a single entity. However, I remained oblivious to the depth of their relationship. In a dimly lit corner of the dance floor, Lily found herself locked in his embrace, and their lips met in a kiss that was more than just friendly. It was a kiss that shook her to the core, and so, a chain of events was set in motion. The following Friday, during one of their outings, he found a reason to take her away from the pub, ultimately leading to a passionate encounter in his car. Their desires grew, and they soon found themselves entangled like wild creatures in the back seat. Overwhelmed by guilt upon returning home, Lily was determined to give me the love and affection I deserved, unaware that as her husband, I deserved unwavering loyalty. However, due to their daily interactions at work, it became increasingly challenging for her to distance herself from him. They had grown too comfortable in each other's presence, but Lily's love for me remained steadfast. I was willing to sacrifice everything for Ron because my love for him remained unshakable. Lily never intended to hurt me through her infidelity, but she was gravely mistaken in believing that her connection with him surpassed the bond we shared. This affair continued for 4 months, and now she lay in a hospital bed revealing all the details of her betrayal. I listened, shedding tears without interruption. Lily vowed to do whatever it took to save our marriage. However, I couldn't decide whether I could live with the memories of her infidelity, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her. After all, my beloved wife was in a fragile, emotional, and physical state, and I didn't want to inflict further pain on her. So I returned to my hotel room and contacted my lawyer, asking him to prepare the necessary divorce documents. I was deeply concerned about how the divorce would impact Lily's condition. I didn't want her to suffer, but it seemed inevitable. While the divorce papers were being prepared, I spent quality time with my beloved daughters. I didn't plan to seek custody. Instead, Lily and I should jointly raise them, albeit not under the same roof. However, my plans unraveled when my lawyer delivered the divorce papers to Lily, who was still in the hospital. Her emotional state worsened upon learning of the divorce, and that dreadful day marked a turning point for the worse. She suffered a stroke when she realized I had initiated divorce proceedings. When her doctor informed me of this, I began to despise myself. I should have waited to proceed with the divorce until Lily had fully recovered. I spent 3 days by her side holding her hand. Lily's condition deteriorated, and even after 2 months she only showed partial improvement. She was left paralyzed on her left side, and it was a heartbreaking situation for all of us. I blamed myself entirely, but at the same time, I understood that if Lily hadn't engaged in a secret affair with her colleague, none of this would have happened. No matter how hard I tried to convince myself to stay in the same house with Lily and our daughters, I couldn't do it. Every time I looked at her, I would be reminded of that scene of betrayal in the car. So I packed my belongings and moved into a nearby rented apartment to stay close to my beautiful daughters. As much as I didn't want it to be this way, it was Lily herself who had turned our once happy life into chaos and suffering.